Everyone knows the Steelers have been looking to trade for somebody, but who should they trade for? Wide receiver's been the popular target, but I think they should be looking somewhere else, including wide receiver. We'll talk about that with Nick Farabaugh here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Steelers, your daily Pittsburgh Steelers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter, bringing you your daily dose of all things on the Pittsburgh Steelers. As always, you can find this show on your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube. Like this video if you enjoy it. Subscribe to this YouTube channel to get all of your daily Monday through Friday episodes as well as our bonus content. We thank you for making us your first listen every day because we're your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you get $300 back in bonus bets to use across the FanDuel app. We'll have more on them later. As I said before, joined by the man himself, Nick Farabaugh. He's back from PennLive.com covering the Steelers. Nick, you and I have been assessing things. We're going to get to things that the Steelers need to fix ahead of playing the Green Bay Packers this weekend. But you've also been writing about the Steelers and what they're looking for in the trades and that there's phone calls being made out there. And wide receiver has been a primary target for the Steelers. And before we get to other positions, there was a juxtaposition. There was a position put out there, I believe by Adam Schefter, that said that the Steelers were looking for a speed wide receiver. And you and I were both like, what? No. And I know some people are like, what do you mean? Speed sounds pretty good. But Nick, explain to people why maybe that's not exactly this type of receiver the Steelers should be going for right now.
That's what the Steelers have. They have Calvin Austin, they have Roman Wilson, they have Scotty Miller, even Keyshawn Williams. A little bit of a different archetype there, but he's still a smaller slot guy. They don't necessarily need a ton of size. It could be a guy with size, but what they need is really an intermediate kind of route runner type to me. And I think that's what they really need, someone to take the pressure off DK in contested catch situations. That's kind of what I look for. And so, there's not necessarily like, even if you look at the potential trade targets that you look at, is there like a true speed receiver that I think fits in the Austin archetype? I'm not sure there is. There's like Rashid Shaheed, who is someone from New Orleans. He's a route runner type, I think, to me. He's more in that vein. You think about like Olave, again, finesse type, going to win in those zones, man beaters. I think Jakobi Meyers is in that same belt. But the other thing that, I hope that the Steelers are kind of thinking about here is don't do what they did last year. Don't put a 5th-round pick and lay it on fire just to say you made a move, because they didn't really have a cohesive plan, it felt, last year to kind of get Mike Williams integrated into this offense.
Agreed.
If you're not going to get someone, that you think can make a difference, like if you don't think Alan Lazard can make a difference and that's someone that might be on the market, or a Tyler Lockett or a Brandon Cooks, those are all older guys that theoretically could be traded. Don't just make the move just to make the move. Don't do it just because you said it, because I think Calvin Austin has proven himself to be a nice compliment. I thought we saw at least some promising signs. I know it was against the Bengals, but Roman Wilson played well on Thursday. So don't make a move just to make a move, but there's a specific archetype they're looking at. And I would hope that they would think that they would get a guy that's a chain mover, route runner, contested catch guy, someone in those archetypes, something that they do not have in this room right now.
Right. They have the guys that can stretch the field. DK can stretch the field. Like you said, DK, Calvin, Roman, and even Scotty can all run sub 4.4 40-yard dashes. Like, they have speed. The question is, but if speed was the issue in football, if that was the biggest thing, there'd be a lot of track stars that would be football players. But route running, everything like that plays into it. I do think that route running and contested catch ability, being able to go up over the middle, being able to haul down, catches when the cornerback's around you, that's something that can really work to your favor there. And granted, they kind of have the tight ends for that, but that's also why I don't feel like this is the make or break trade that I think people have made it out to be since going back to 2 years ago when this was all started. I think that, and again, I think it would help them if they did, but I don't think that it's the make or break trade that if they don't do this, they are going to stink or whatever. I think that they've shown they can survive. People said, oh, there's no way they can come back late in the fourth quarter with no second wide receiver that's bona fide and set up. And then that's exactly what they did with their tight ends. But to me, I wanted to ask you, Nick, I've had this theory for a minute Now, I used to joke around about Minkah Fitzpatrick. For the record, you can't trade for Minkah Fitzpatrick because they've traded him away. I think it's like a 2-year cap on being able to get him. But I have thought about the idea of just getting another guy for the secondary, and it's a little trickier there because sometimes teams don't want to come up off their cornerbacks. But like a guy like Riq Woolen in Seattle, who's on the last year of his rookie deal, and is 6'4", is big, is that archetype cornerback that they want. That's something that I think could intrigue the Steelers. That would make a lot of sense because right now, and Alan and I talked about this, Darius Slay cannot run man coverage. He's not that guy. He can maybe play some zones that'll help you and win in pinches. But if they want to be that aggressive defense they've talked about, they need one more guy that can cover on the outside, be that physical bump and run. He can run with you. He can hit with you type of cornerback. And Riq Woolen is a guy that's been notably on the trade market from the Seahawks who can play outside. And I'm not saying they have to get him specifically, but a type like that where it shouldn't cost them an arm and a leg to get him because I still think they need to protect the majority of their early draft picks. And he could also be a younger guy that's not in his 30s, needing to keep up with guys.
Yeah, Riq Woolen in particular is a super volatile player, but he fits exactly what they like: the speed, the press man ability. I understand where you're coming from. I think that they need another piece in the secondary, and I think a man coverage corner, specifically outside man coverage corner, because I think ideally I'd like to see Jalen Ramsey more in the slot and more. Now, granted, maybe they try, before the deadline, I'd like to see more Brandon Echols because I just want to see how that looks and maybe BE's the answer. And so maybe you don't need to do that. But I think a guy like Riq Woolen would make sense. I also think, if we're just naming names, the Titans aren't very good. And there's a guy by the name of Roger McCreary.
Roger McCreary
is a nice little player there. And I think he could be someone that you look at. If people are going to look at the Titans roster and say, what about L'Jarius Sneed? No. That's all I'm going to say. If you watch this tape, no. He is the type of corner that they would like, though. But, I think corner could work. The other thing I'll throw out is we see this incredibly diverse rotation of safeties every week. Sometimes it's Peppers, sometimes it's Juan Thornhill, sometimes it's Chuck Clark. If there's a free safety you like on the market that you think can just take 100% of those snaps, I'm in favor of trying to go get a free safety.
Yeah.
So
I'm with you.
There's two spots that you can maybe look at there that I think could make some sense. I think man coverage corner, though, could make sense. And I think there are some players on some of these teams that are really bad. Could you maybe get another in-division trade done? Would Cam Taylor-Britt be an option? I don't like. Are we going to do that now? I don't know. So. But I do think McCreary and Woolen are two. Oh God, yeah. What 6'7"? Is that terrible? That's terrible. That's terrible.
Terrible on my part.
But yeah, no, I do think Woolen, McCreary are just two of the names that come to mind immediately. That could make sense. Also, don't call the Dolphins. Look at their cornerback room.
Oh my gosh! Like they're going through it right now. But McCreary is another name that I think makes a lot of sense. Again, a guy out of Auburn. I liked him when he was coming out of the draft. I thought that he could be a developing corner, but he could be a guy. Because here's the other thing: is that if you get a younger cornerback, that he could be the guy that you say like, hey, if this works out this year, we keep this guy around for a couple more years. He pairs with Joey Porter Jr. and Ramsey, and then like that becomes your new secondary. Then maybe you draft a guy next year in like the second or third round and say, hey, you're going to be our developing corner behind these groups of vets, and you could have a rotation there. But again, that's why I brought this up. And free safety, you're right on point about that because I think Juan Thornhill is doing a solid job. But the problem is he's one man, and they are trying to do this rotation thing where they're moving guys around and keeping you guessing who's where. And listen, I think Chuck Clark has fought his butt off for the Steelers, but I also think that he is not a deep safety. And anytime you put him back there, you're asking for him to do a lot. And if they could get a guy who purely fits that role, that'd be beneficial to them. So a free safety and a corner, not saying don't trade for a wide receiver, but I think that those might be even bigger priorities than people have given them credit for, or people have thought them to be, considering how they've played, especially last week.
Hey, they did 2 trades last year at the deadline. They went out and got an edge 4 out of all things when no one thought about that. Leal went down, they went an edge 4. So, I mean, let's think about that. They could easily go out and get a corner and a receiver. I don't think that's crazy to think about. I do think, just drawing back to a receiver, I do think the reason I think they could use one is, coming back on the Jets and the Bengals defense is good that they can do that. But what happens when you face, for example, the Packers defense this week, which has its own flaws, but is better than both those units, certainly.
Right.
And you need to maybe go 11 personnel and 3 wide just to have the option. I like the more abundance of options. And so I think that can help. But I think they need more ability to run what they want on defense too, because they rolled out – me and Chris talked about this. They rolled out the whole Rolodex. I mean, everything. They ran every type of coverage. They ran quarters, cover 6, 0, 1, 2, Tampa,
2, 3.
You want to name it. 3, obviously they did. So they did it all, and some of it just didn't work. They found out very quickly they could not man up. And if you're going to man up, then you need another guy there. Maybe it's Brandon Eccles, but I would look around the market, see if you can find the right fit.
And I think that's where I'm at and why cornerback's a much bigger target than people recognize in the trade market, or at least should be for the Steelers. We'll see how Omar Khan works the phone. The trade deadline is November 4th, so 2 weeks away from today, because this is the Tuesday episode. We're recording on Monday. That's what I wanted to bring up there. But I want to talk about this run defense, because as much as we have banged on the pass defense, the run defense got shredded by a run offense that should not have shredded it. I want to talk about what happened there with Nick and what they need to do moving forward. It's the Locked On Steelers podcast. Chris Carter, Nick Farabaugh, stick with us. We'll be right back.
I'm Cody Rourke from Locked On Broncos, and this episode is brought to you by Peloton. Peloton is shaping the future of fitness with the brand new Peloton Cross-Training Tread Plus, powered by Peloton IQ. This is Peloton's most advanced equipment yet, giving you real-time guidance and endless ways to move, whether you're running, lifting, or you're cross-training with your favorite instructors like Alex Toussaint. It's training reimagined to make your workout more personal. Peloton is built for breakthroughs with features that help you plan, stay motivated, and hit peak performance. You can let yourself run, lift, flex, and go, while Peloton handles all the rest. Plus, Peloton IQ provides real-time strength coaching, tracking your progress and suggesting weights that challenge you so you can get stronger. Plus, the new movement tracking camera, it counts your reps and corrects your form in real time, making sure every rep is safer and smarter. So let yourself run, lift, flex, push, and go. Explore the new Peloton Cross-Training Tread Plus at onepeloton.com.
We're also brought to you by Mazda. Mazda craft cars for those who do more than simply move. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride, with more IIHS Top Safety Pick awards than anyone else. You can feel a Japanese craftsmanship in every detail, from metallic accents to available Napa leather upholstery. With all-wheel drive standard in every crossover SUV, you can drive with confidence through almost any season. Like the players, Mazda sweats every detail, because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. We're back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Chris Carter, Nick Farabaugh of PennLive.com. Nick, let's talk about this run defense, because, Nick, I honestly did think that they had turned a corner with the way they shut down the Browns. I mean, heck, you see what Quinshawn Judkins did to the Dolphins. Granted, I guess everyone does that to the Dolphins. But to the point, they took away the Vikings run game. I was like saying they should be worried about this, because Jordan Mason, that O-line, they can get busy on them. They took that away. Then the Browns run game, they took that away. So I'm thinking, okay, they're doing better. They're figuring it out. And then they give up over 100 yards to Chase Brown in an offense that averaged 56 yards per game. When you looked at the tape, Nick, what did you see being the biggest problems with the run defense this week? Was it a return to issues that you saw before, or was it something entirely different?
It was some of the same issues. They didn't beat blocks like they should have. One of the plays, Benton just got held, and I'm not sure what you're supposed to do there.
Alan and I said, I know exactly the play. Alan and I said the same exact thing, but go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, Y.A. Black got destroyed on that play, but I thought I thought that a lot of it was some of the guys also being a little too anxious to shoot gaps and getting caught up in the same gaps. And I thought some gap and just run fit integrity in general, I thought wasn't great. It's not like it's miscommunication. I just think it was guys trying to make a play, trying to get them behind the sticks because they knew that the passing game was kind of cooking and they were pressing a little much. And they kind of ran into these combo blocks. And Brown is just so explosive. If you mess up, he's going to get out the gate. So I thought that was part of it. I thought linebacker play in general was a little more rough this game, just because the Steelers didn't run as many run blitzes. I feel like they ran a lot of – they kind of made, PQ and Peyton Wilson and Cole Holcomb stand on their toes instead of firing downhill. And these are not linebackers that are going to be guys that necessarily whoop blocks and stack and shed outside of Holcomb. So I thought there was some of that. I also just thought the safety kind of room in general didn't do a great job of upholding the kind of third level. Elliott had a few uncharacteristically bad fits. They had a few missed tackles, I think, too. I don't know what the charting says, but I would not be surprised at all if this game was their worst tackling game of the season. They missed just tackles that turned some runs out. So there were a few different things, but I really thought it was run fit integrity, not whooping blocks on the defensive line, and then really at the second, third level, just either bad angles, bad run fits, or kind of getting clogged in the same lanes of the defensive line trying to make a play.
I feel you on that. It's funny. I didn't total up their missed tackles and compare it to other weeks, but I mean, they charted Patrick Queen with three misses. I think Peyton had 2 misses. I think Elliott had 2 misses. I mean, just second and third level guys, and honestly, Elliott's sometimes a second level guy. But you can't have that if you want to be good in the run defense. And again, this kind of goes back to what you're trying to do as a defense, because I think one of the main things, especially when you're playing an offense that's so talented at wide receiver, if you want your corners to be able to be aggressive against them, what's the main way you want to do it? You want to say, hey, man press, run with those guys. But when you're in man press, if your corners aren't as talented as those wide receivers, and I think this game showed you that they weren't as talented as Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, what do you do to back them up? You give them deep safety protection on both sides so that they know, hey, I'm going to be jamming. I'm going to be working. I'm trying to take away inside leverage. But if I get cooked, I got a guy behind me that's got my back, so I can afford to be that aggressive. But the thing is that this is why football is such an amazing, complicated game. You do that, okay, put those safeties back there. But guess what? Now that you have 2 safeties back and 2 corners dedicated on those receivers, guess becomes more stressed out, the run defense. And when you're not stuffing the run, then it starts to become that pick your poison type of game. And that's when an offense can have its way. And that's what happened with the Bengals. I still thoroughly believe the Steelers' formula for what they wanted to do to the Bengals was let Jamar Chase eat what he's going to eat, but take away T. Higgins, take away Noah Fant, don't let them run the ball. And then if all they have is Jamar Chase, they're gonna find out that you need more than that. But the problem was they didn't take away anything else, and that led to their issues. And so to me, that run defense, and I kind of go back to the explanation that Cam Hayward gave us when we talked to him. I think it was after the Seahawks game, and he said we have to anticipate what people are doing better. We have to jump into our gaps quicker. We have to do that, and I think that's something that they did well the 3 games after the Seahawks loss, which were all wins. And I think in this game, I think early on they seemed to start to get it, but then later in the game, it seemed like you said they just weren't shooting the gaps as aggressively, and maybe it was because they weren't trying to trip themselves up. But to me, that's the stuff that you need to be able to get done, because you do that right and you stuff the run there, all of a sudden you force more of those 3rd and longs, maybe you get to more predictable situations, and then you can get more mistakes from Joe Flacco in this passing offense, even with the day that those receivers were having.
I just think, Patriots, Vikings, Browns, big focus run game. And you got to just wonder, short week, how much did the Steelers really dedicate energy to this run game? Probably not much. So they maybe got caught sleeping a little bit. I think that could have been a part of it too. Even on the early kind of run, when they weren't necessarily breaking it explosive, they were still getting 3, 4, 5. It was this is a little tenuous here. It was the run game for the Bengals was getting a little more than they should have, because that O-line has not played well this year, especially the interior of the O-line.
Right.
And they were getting a little too much push for my liking. But the Steelers had to back off some of their run blitzes, because otherwise you couldn't allocate as many guys as you would want to to the coverage schemes that they were running, because they had to make sure to have someone on chase or some, doubling this guy, and someone has to occupy the underneath zones if there's something going on there. So they just were a little more conservative in terms of that. And I thought that kind of showed itself out a little bit. I do think really the big thing, though, was lack of kind of run fit integrity. And I just didn't feel like the defensive line beat blocks very well. Like, this was a really bad game for Y.A. Black. He did not play well in this game. And I've said this going back, I think, to New England. I'd like to see a little more at Kowale. I think he played really well in his limited snaps. He played 6 snaps in this game. I understand it's more of a pass-heavy game, so that's not really his forte. But I would like to see, especially if you're playing 2 high shells, Chris, if you're playing to play a lot of split safety looks, throw him in there. He's a really good run defender. So I would like to see a little more Dan at Kowale. So I think that could also be a nice change up for them that can help clog those double teams and allow PQ, Holcomb, and Wilson to shoot through those gaps.
I think one of the more underrated potential strengths of this roster is that it does have depth to it, where if some guy doesn't deliver, you can rotate other guys in there. Now, when they get ravaged by injury, that's not the case. But look at how they're using Cole Holcomb. Granted, I think that they used him a little too much on Thursday. But Peyton Wilson was struggling in the early rundowns in the earlier part of the year. So what they do, they said, Cole Holcomb, get out there in those early downs. Peyton Wilson, go out in those later downs. And then you saw that kind of help both players get on the field. D-line, they've been rotating guys around. Cornerback, Brandon Eccles being able to fill in. They have answers at multiple positions, but eventually you still need these guys to come up with big answers in tough moments against good players. I think that's where this run defense needs to kind of get to the point of doing consistently. I felt like they were starting to do that consistently when they when they played their last few games. Obviously, they took a step back in this one, but I don't think anyone's going to feel sorry for them. They better get ready, because they're facing a Packers team that they don't dominate the run, but they run a lot. They have the 5th most rushing attempts in the NFL right now. And they're going to try to run with Josh Jacobs. They're going to try to be physical. They're going to try to use it to set up Jordan Love in the passing game. You cannot afford to allow them to run the ball on you. And to your point, I think maybe preparation played a part of it, as far as, short week against a team that just doesn't have a whole lot of run tape. But this needs to be a week where they get that together and they find a way to shut it down with the Packers.
100%. And, you talk about rotations. There is a law of diminishing returns, I think, to a degree on some of those. In terms of run fits, and when you're slinging run fits and you're trying to fit rolls in, I'd like to have stability there. I think, for example, I think the Holcomb Wilson thing is being a little bit overdone right now. It's not static. Like, it's not like Cole is coming in for rundowns only, and then you got Peyton in there for coverage downs. Like, they're mixing them and matching them on rundowns and pass downs. I think that's complicating it a little bit. I think sometimes let's simplify things. When you're struggling in this realm, sometimes you just need to simplify things. Same thing at safety, right? If you're that free safety, just pick one. It's going to be Juan, it'll be Juan. If you want Pep, it'll be Pep. If it's going to be Chuck Clark, it shouldn't be Chuck Clark, but if it's going to be Chuck Clark, it'll be Chuck Clark. So sometimes simplify things. So I do think there is something to be said at the second level and third level, specifically about simplifying rotations. Up front, I actually think they need to rotate a little more. Herbig needs to play a little more. Ekwale a little more. But the second and third levels, I think, are being a little bit stressed out communication-wise and just knowing their roles. And so sometimes when guys don't, what do? They say, screw this, I'm just going to go make a play, and that's how you sometimes get explosives out the gate.
I hear you there. I do think there's some things they could do to fix things there. I do think the run defense is fixable. I think this whole defense is fixable. I do think they behoove themselves to add some more talent to the secondary that can do a few more things that they want to do to be aggressive. But again, I do think the run defense, to your point, getting off blocks, getting after it, getting after a little bit better, maybe some different personnel rotation. There are answers to be had there. Will they find them? We'll find that out as the season continues. But we also got to take a break, because you guys have been asking me a lot in the comment section, in my DMs, in my emails, in the call-in center about this quarterback class and an update on that situation. I want to get Nick's insights, as well as review my top 10 quarterbacks currently that could be in the prospective draft class. We'll talk about that next here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. Stick with us. We'll be right back. But first, remind you that this show is also brought to you by FanDuel. With the NFL season well underway, FanDuel is making sure that you're ready for kickoff with this can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins on that $5 bet, you'll get $300 back in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits however you like to bet, player props, building a same-game parlay, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. It makes every game more exciting, whether you're watching with your team or just keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup. It's quick, easy, and the best way to add a little more energy to Sundays. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app today by using FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet and get your chance at $300 in bonus bets only on FanDuel. We're back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Chris Carter, Nick Farabaugh, PennLive.com. Nick, we talked briefly before the season about this. Well, not briefly. We talked several times about how last year's quarterback draft class was not the class and that this class would have a lot better players in it. But as some people have seen, a lot of the big names that were at the top of this class have fallen very far. And that's led to some new faces being there. Now, every week for the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, I give a top 10 quarterback rankings. And listen, these are not definitive, this is where I definitely think they'll go by the end of next year. But this is just where I think, like, tier-wise, like, hey, I think these guys kind of rank in this order. If I was to pick them right now out of a lineup, this is how I think I'd pick them for, like, my all-time pickup teams. But looking at the list here, at the start of the year, I put Garrett Nussmeier as one of the top quarterbacks. He's fallen to my number 9 quarterback here. Carson Beck wasn't on my list. He creeped up in it for a little bit because he was succeeding and then fell like a rock with 4 interceptions this past weekend. He sits at number 10 behind Nussmeier. But there are some newer, younger faces that have really stepped up. Fernando Mendoza has been my number 1. And the thing is, Nick, I know that there's a lot of people that are looking like, well, there's no Cade Klubnik, there's no Drew Aller, there's no Garrett Nussmeier that's lighting it up. Pack it up. This isn't going to be a good quarterback draft class year. But, Nick, I still think there's some really good guys that if they choose to come out this year could make some waves.
Yeah, it's just been a different group of guys that have rose up out of nowhere. You know, Mendoza was a guy that was on radars, but he's really taken hold of that. I think right now he's probably quarterback 1 and would probably be the favorite to go first overall. But then you kind of have these 2 or 3 new guys that have popped up. Dante Moore out of nowhere, playing really well at Oregon. He's a guy that's really come up. Ty Simpson out of nowhere after sitting behind Jalen Milroe. He looks great.
He looks like really good.
He looks like a similar to like a Jared Goff-ish type of player. Have not had many quarterbacks in that archetype recently. And honestly, if I like perfect Arthur Smith type of quarterback when you just so Ty Simpson, I think, fits there. You know, Sellers has been in a bad situation and I think is probably going to go back, but we'll see. He's uber talented. But then you have other guys, you know, you guys like Brandon Sorsby, who's having a really good year. TCU's Josh Hoover, I don't think is going to come out, but has had a good year. The tape's good. Nuss, I think, still has some things that you can really hang your hat on. There's just been a number of guys that, you know, were maybe redshirt sophomores or redshirt juniors kind of getting their first real big opportunity that have really grabbed the mantle and have taken with it.
Right.
It's not a bad quarterback class. It's just different names than you thought it would be. It's a good class. Right now, there's probably 3 or 4 first-round quarterbacks if those guys come out.
I agree. Like, that's the thing is that it's different names, but still talented guys. I'm going to read through my top 10 list in reverse. We're going to go 3 at a time, and then I want to get your thoughts. I have right now Beck at 10, Nussmeier at 9, Olave at 8 out of UCLA. Your thoughts there, Nick?
Yeah, I mean, Beck and Nuss. Nuss is a high floor player. I'm cool with him. I'm probably a little higher on him than that. I think he could be somebody that's an interesting floor raiser. Beck, I think, is a long-term backup. And then Olave, I mean, probably still needs another year of seasoning, but man, the talent is there. He's got great talent with his legs. He's got an absolute rocket arm. I mean, there's a lot of
he's huge.
Right, and he's huge. He's very prototypical in a lot of ways. If he comes out, he is going to be like the Will Levis, Drew Lock-ish type in this class because oozing with talent, former 5-star, super talented football player.
I'm right with you there. I put him back up in the 8. I had him ranked going into the season and for a few weeks, but then after a while, I bumped him out because UCLA was just stinking up the joint. And it was hard to really evaluate him. But now he's stepping up. My next 3 guys at number 7, Brendan Sorsby out of Cincinnati. Number 6, Sam Leavitt out of Arizona State, and number 5, Ty Simpson out of Alabama.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm higher on Simpson than that at this point. I'm with you because we're just.
I might be.
Right. I think he's a top 3 quarterback right now.
Yeah,
and I really do. I think he's been that good. Sorsby's putting together some really fun stuff. He's always been really fun. You watched him when Pitt played Cincinnati last year. There's a lot of fun things about Sorsby, but the quick game stuff, the processing stuff, it's starting to come along, and that's exciting. Yeah. He can continue that. Levitt's a fascinating player. I never know what I'm going to get from him every week, but talent is there. Again, probably still needs maybe a little bit more seasoning for me to fully buy in, but I think right now he's certainly an intriguing option to watch.
I feel about Ty Simpson. I thought about making him 3rd, but I also was like rising him up my rankings because he was someone who early on, he lost to Florida State and then he was beating up on nobodies. And I was like, meh. And then after like the second time he beat a ranked SEC team, I was like, okay. And then this last week, I was like, all right, I need to put him up in here. So he makes top 5, might be top 3 by next week though. My final 4 here, I got Lenore Sellers out of South Carolina at 4, John Mateer out of Oklahoma at 3, Dante Moore out of Oregon at 2, and of course, like I said before, Fernando Mendoza out of Indiana at 1. Give me your thoughts on those guys. I think Lenore Sellers was the guy I thought could be the guy this year who would be perfectly slated for the Steelers to get him because I thought he would do just enough to show his productivity, but not enough to make him a first overall pick or even a top 5 pick, and then the Steelers could trade up in the back end of the top 10, get him, and he could be a franchise guy. But Nick, South Carolina is a hot mess. And if I was him, I would go back to college football next year, transfer to someone that would actually use me the way I need to be used, and then I would show my draft stock.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's shown some growth winning from in-structure. I just think with him, what I've been wanting to see him elevate around him, but I don't know if he's not capable of doing that. I mean, we saw that last year, Clemson game. He certainly did that. I just think the situation right now around him is very rotten. And he has to shed himself of that, whether it is the second half, maybe things improving around him, or he has to go somewhere next year. He's right now, probably going to be, if he came out this year, he'd probably be like a late first round pick because you're not turning down his ability, his raw talent. And he's certainly not like super raw. When people were going to say that they're going to be like Anthony Richardson, Malik Willis. No, he's very different of a player to me than that. He's more polished. Mateer is interesting. I'm not sure yet if Mateer's a legitimate NFL quarterback or if he's just a really good college quarterback. But I didn't watch a lot of Wazoo last year, so I don't really know the Wazoo film. And the Oklahoma film I've watched this year seems to be a lot of processing errors, a lot of really fun throws, extremely fun player, good intangibles. Like there's a lot of good things there. So I don't really have a ton of like concrete takes on Mateer yet. I really like your top 2. Moore and Mendoza to me are clear 2. And Simpson is my 3 right now, given what I've watched of him. So it's like we're talking about these guys. Even when we're getting to 6-7, I feel even when we're getting to 6-7, I feel like we're talking, about guys with tools that are intriguing that as they keep it up could become more serious prospects. Remember, we're only 7-8 games into the college football season for most teams.
Right.
So there's a whole lot more football to be played out there. And I think, some of these guys can actually continue to rise and become legitimate players in this class. So we'll see where it goes. But right now, I mean, this class is leaps and bounds better than the 2025 class. It's not even close.
And that's my thing here is that I know that there's certain names that someone was hanging on to. They're like, well, that guy's not in it, so I don't care anymore. But there are certainly other names that have risen to the occasion. And I still see the Steelers as major players in this draft class for one of these guys if they really believe in them. Because that's the other part of this. Who do the Steelers believe? They went and saw Dante Moore this weekend, scouting him as well as others. But to me, that's going to be the interesting point here is can they figure it out? Can they build a plan to go get one of these guys? And if it's one of these guys, how do they fit? Do they get a guy that fits the more traditional drop back quarterback style that they've been playing of late? Or do they go get a guy who could be mobile like Sellers or Moore who can buy time? So I think there's still plenty of options. And to your point, it's the middle part of the season. This time last year, Will Howard was not looking like an NFL draft pick to some people. Some people thought, like, oh, he's just the benefit of the system that he's in. But it was his play in those playoffs and championship games that people said, hey, I think he could be a guy in the NFL. So give it time. We'll see how all of these guys play out and how things move forward. But the bottom line is the 2026 draft class for quarterbacks is still very much in play for the Steelers.
100%. And listen, I know the comp picks aren't looking as sterling as they were given Russ and Justin Fields.
Oh boy,
kind of not doing too well right now in the Big Apple. But they still have the 3rd round pick from Dan Moore. That's going to be a thing, and they'll have 3/3. So they'll have one thing I do want to say about the 3/3. I think a lot of people say this is ammunition for them to trade up, and I kind of think that's wrong. I think it's actually the ammunition they have to make sure they can fill the rest of their needs for when they trade up. So that there's different things there, but they're going to be players. They're going to be players in this class. They continue. I don't know how it's undeniable at this point. I get there's like talent at all these schools that you'll see otherwise, but they keep going to all the quarterback destinations 2, 3, 4 times. They're scouting this class very heavily, and then they can make an approximation. Then they'll make an approximation after the Senior Bowl in the combine. They're like, do we really want a quarterback? And we'll decide.
And that's exactly what I think they should be doing. We'll keep you up to date on all things on the Pittsburgh Steelers here in the Locked On Steelers podcast. Nick, thanks so much for joining us here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Let people can find you, follow you, and get more of your work.
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at Farabaugh, Blue Sky at Nick Farabaugh. Make sure to check out the YouTube channel, the Steelers Blitz, and check out the Steelers stuff, penlive.com/Steelers.
He's Nick Farabaugh. Nick, thank you for joining us. Thank you all for joining us here as well on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. Follow me on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Blue Sky, wherever you get social media. It's always at Carter Critiques. Read my work in the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette by going to post-gazette.com, including my top 10 rankings of the Steelers quarterback draft class that we're looking at here. All of that can be found in the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, just like all of this show can be found on YouTube or on your favorite podcasting app. Like this video if you enjoy it. Subscribe to this channel to get all of your daily Monday through Friday episodes of the Locked On Steelers podcast. Back here tomorrow after we got a chance to talk to Tomlin later today, all here on the Locked On Steelers podcast.